$631. So it's good news that the majority of these net savings of $3.3 million were through expediting and completing works in the 24-25 year and the receipt of some grants. I always recommend our community to read this report, particularly when some projects are highly anticipated. It's an attachment on our website where the council agenda is published. It gives some insights of where we're at and what is coming up in our Capital Works program. And before I finish up, I'll just explain Part C of the motion, which is in response to Capital Works for the Newmarket Latham, which the Mayor has worked with residents in an effort to respond to concerns about the 12-month trial in Glant Street. This amendment adjusts the implementation to address concerns raised in this street and to balance the different needs of residents. My understanding is that the outcome of the trial will be considered ahead of any long-term changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Philburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks very much. I mean, just to raise a couple of things, just to flag that the LATAM is the local area traffic management plan that's undertaken in specific precincts across the council, which looks at parking controls, local traffic controls, and so forth. They often involve lots and lots of recommendations and have lots and lots of significant community input into them. Sometimes quite polarised, sometimes quite difficult to unpick, and tweaks and adjustments are not uncommon to get the best results through the voting process. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Councillor Philburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation. I just wanted to flag a couple of the projects that have been already completed in Q1. We've seen some drainage upgrades, including the beautiful new drain in Wollonga Street, Strathmore, my own ward. I drive past it every day, and it's great to see the good work done. Accessible parking upgrades in Treadwell Road, Midri and Essendon North. It's great to see.
Councillor Jones, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to call an adjournment. There seems to be a problem with the live streaming. So we're just going to, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Again when we come back. I want people to hear me, so.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, for your understanding. I'm going to call an adjournment for hopefully no more than 5 minutes, but if it's a little longer, it's because we haven't been able to recommence the live streaming. We'll hopefully see you very shortly.
Adams has just moved the motion for 9.9, which is now on the screen, and Councillor Phil Byrne has seconded that motion. So Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will, thank you, Mayor. This report is to update Council on the progress of the delivery of the 25-26 Capital Works program for Q1 at 25-26. Council endorsed the revised 25-26 Capital Works program of $51,760,462. That includes 24-25 carried forward projects. Favourable variations in this Q1 of $3.3 million has resulted in a revised 2025-26 forecast of around $48.5 million. So it's good news that the majority of these net savings of $3.3 million were through expediting and completing works in 24-25 and also receipts of grants. I always recommend our community to read this report, particularly when some projects are highly anticipated. It's an attachment on our website where the council agenda is published. It gives some insights of where we're at and what is coming up in our Capital Works program. And before I finish up, I'll just quickly explain Part C of the motion, which is in response to the Capital Works for the Newmarket Latin, which the Mayor has worked with residents in an effort to respond to concerns about the 12-month trial in Glen Street. This amendment adjusts the implementation to address concerns raised in this street and to balance the different needs of residents. My understanding is that the outcome of the trial will be considered ahead of any long-term changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Kilburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to start by clarifying that the LADM stands for the Local Area Traffic Management Plans. They're detailed, the local area traffic management plans are done sort of precinct by precinct across the municipality as a detailed review of parking, traffic, cycling arrangements. There's lots and lots of recommendations and moves and changes that come out with each plan. There's also significant community input into the plans, and some of that input is sometimes conflicting and sometimes polarised and sometimes challenging for officers and ourselves to distill. And in implementing the plans, tweaks and adjustments are not uncommon to get best results for the community. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kilburn. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to speak briefly and touch on a few of the works that have been completed during the time that this report covers. It's not just big projects, although there are some big projects in there. It's a lot of small projects as well. So, it's things like minor drainage works, and I must say the new drain in Wollonga Avenue in my own ward in Strathmore is a beautiful drain, and I congratulate the contractors on their hard work. It includes small things like upgrading an outdoor informal basketball facility. So there was one in Strathmore and also in Keilor East that has been upgraded. I know some accessible parking in Treadwell Road in Midgery, just to give people more access to the community. They're all important projects that do come out of the Capital Works budget. And at the other end of the scale, we have bigger projects like the completed Rose Hill Park landscape and play space. So it covers things big and small, and it's an important part of what we deliver to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? In which case I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The last report is item 9.10, consideration of the Planning Reform Bill. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is shown on the screen. Do I have a motion? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment to the officer's recommendation, and the amendment being that council resolves to join with the Municipal Association of Victoria, MAV, and local governments across Victoria to call for public inquiry and to raise concerns about the planning amendment, brackets, better decisions made faster, brackets, Bill 2025, and support processes for consulting with the local government sector to make necessary improvement to the bill and supportive legislation. Paragraph B, request the Mayor write to the Honourable Sonia Kilkenny, MP, Minister for Planning, and copying the Honourable Ben Carroll, MP, Member for Midri, the Honourable Dylan Pearson, MP, Member for Essendon, the Leader of the Opposition Planning Spokesperson, and the Municipal Association of Victoria, summarising Council's view on the bill as outlined in the Officer's report, with particular emphasis on paragraph 1, the missed opportunity for mechanisms to enable responsible authorities to secure meaningful contributions for social and affordable housing, such as mandatory consistent contributions across municipalities. Paragraph 2, ensuring that responding to climate and environmental risk is not lost in strategic and statutory planning decisions, and that community and infrastructure resilience is not weakened through reform. Paragraph 3, ensuring that councils, referral authorities, stakeholders and the community have an opportunity to participate meaningfully in planning reforms and significant land use planning decisions affecting them. Paragraph 4, seeking assurances that council's development contributions arrangements will be maintained and that funds collected through future infrastructure contribution plans are spent to support housing growth and to benefit communities where the funds are collected.
Thank you, Councillor Philburn. Were all councillors able to read that motion? Could I just ask, please, that after B1, 2 and 3, there's a semicolon and see who in those. Thank you. While that's been done, do we have a seconder? Councillor Johns, thank you. Councillor Philburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Ma'am. First, I just want to thank the officers in pulling together the report and recommendations, and for also dealing with quite a busy space where there's been a lot of changes at the same time that they have to administer the planning scheme and so forth as it is. It's obviously a very comprehensive reform package. I just wanted to cover a couple of key areas in it. Any areas that I don't cover is not through lack of interest or care, it's just through utilising the time, and I know that some of my colleagues will probably address those points anyway. Really, for this, I guess, letter, I'm really sort of seeking to not necessarily provide a clause-by-clause analysis of the package of legislative reform, because our colleagues in the MAB and other councils are doing a very good job of going through that, rather than to pick a few key themes and, I guess, try and elevate them and prioritise those in our response. And by doing so, we don't discount the earlier comments, but we try and have something that's very Moonee Valley specific. So there's a lot of changes in there. We hear a lot about the negative changes, but there are also some potential benefits mixed in with this bill, such as the potential for significant administrative changes for council. There's some very important reforms that come out of IVAC's Operation Standard report in the work. It's also a fair bit of proportionality introduced. At the moment, we've got a planning act that a huge industrial facility has to be assessed through essentially the same pathway as someone's carport. So it does seek to tackle some of those challenges. It also seeks for a better consideration of First Nations cultural values and heritage. However, I think it's important to call out a few key challenges and focus areas. I think obviously the bill tries to get housing approved faster, with the goal for a lot more homes. And I think in doing so, it misses a really important opportunity to embed a mechanism for councils and responsible authorities to tackle social and affordable housing. We have a lot of mentions in the new legislation, even existing legislation in affordable and social housing, but no mechanisms. So we really don't have any consistent approach across municipalities and consistent even figures or rates, whether they be 10%, 12 or 15%. And we risk just having more expensive and unaffordable homes. We also know that climate risk is increasing as well, and it's important that risk remains a very important consideration of planning decisions going forward. We know that this can slow down development, and certainly slow down the development of a lot of our own pavilions, while various agencies provide expert advice on risk, but it is nonetheless a significant step in the process. And perhaps funding those authorities a bit better is better than trying to save time. I think it's also critical that councils and referral agencies can meaningfully contribute to the reforms and all the subsequent changes that will need to come through planning schemes and bringing across those as well. Importantly, thankfully Moonee Valley has a council-wide developer contributions plan as well. This provides critical funds to support growth in our council, and obviously that's something that we want to maintain as well. And also with our shift into a growth municipality, any new infrastructure contribution plans, it's really important that they should support growth and benefit the communities in which the funds have been collected. It's critical for growth. It's not a pathway for revenue. So it's important that affordability is considered, that risk is mitigated, and that growth in our communities is well serviced. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Philburn. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor. Planning reform is one of the most consequential policy shifts that any government can make. It affects every neighbourhood, every street, and every future decision. This is the largest expansion of the Act since its introduction in 1987. I must say I'm a little sceptical about whether expanding legislation can actually lead to improved efficiency. I just want to touch on the key points, and I'm mindful that I don't have much time. Hopefully I get through most of it. I think local voices matter. As our motion requests, we want to make sure that local voices still have a meaningful say in some of the decision making and some of the impacts that affect us locally, because planning decisions do affect our community. They affect traffic, they affect the character of neighbourhoods, they affect parking, they affect privacy, they affect livability overall. Residents expect and deserve to have some meaningful say in their overall neighbourhood, and I think our motion goes some ways into helping support that, both through the request for a public inquiry and the letter that we're sending through. I don't discount the fact that faster approvals are important. If we're not hearing complaints about overdevelopment or development in an area, it's complaints from those that want to develop with things taking too long. So we do need clear rules, we do need clear expectations, and we do need to modernise processes there. But it's not reform for reform's sake. It's got to be balanced, and I think the public inquiry can help balance some of these things, but whilst also making sure we have our local officers, the planning officers we have here, who have that expertise on the local area and that need having some say in some of the rules and how it's balanced going forward. I think it's important that we do get those assurances on development contributions being spent locally. Many of our schools are full, or already close to capacity. Our roads are already congested. Parking is overwhelmed in many areas. As I mentioned in the previous capital works budget, we are spending money on drainage. That's only going to increase the amount of spending that's required there, and we need to make sure that any money collected locally is spent locally. I think there's issues around transparency and trust. I think we see if a planning system moves decisions further away from the communities, risks eroding trust in government. I think that reform must not come at the expense of that democratic accountability. I also think it's important to flag potentially, and hopefully this will come up in a public inquiry, the requirements to ensure that there's those checks and protections to make sure that Thank you, Mayor. To make sure the Minister of Planning remains accountable to the Parliament, and there's concerns that may not happen there. Just to recap, I think that there's been a lack of genuine consultation on some of these reforms. The public inquiry could help fix that. I think we need to make sure that fast-track permits don't cause safety and risk issues. Bypassing potential referral authorities could cause exposure to flood, fire, landslide, other hazards and many risks. Also changes. Can I just have an extra 30 seconds?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mayor. There's issues with changes around restrictive covenants and potential bypassing the stuff in place there. It overrides restrictive covenants and potentially allowing multi-unit developments to be approved in areas that do have protections over them. And I think some of the notification rights could do with some change as well. I commend this motion both in terms of calling for a public inquiry and joining them out there, but also focusing on some of the more important local issues for Moonee Valley through our letter as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Theocrates.
Thank you, Mayor. I really just wanted to echo some points and just highlight some other points, but echo the comments and debates that Councillor Fuller and Councillor Hamish Jones have mentioned. There's been a lot of community input and a lot of the municipality, residents in the municipality that have contacted councillors about their concerns with like the infrastructure, with the sudden growth that this basically gives rise to. And so what I like is ensuring that apart from picking the main points that are very that apply to the municipality of Moonee Valley, in particular the assurance that council's development contributions will be maintained so that future infrastructure can address those issues that are being brought to us by residents with the growth, the impact of the growth and high growth in the area. So I like the inclusion of that in the proposed motion. The other thing that really called to me in the amendment of the officers, or in the motion that's been proposed, is the climate and environmental risk that's currently lost in the reform, and the inclusion of it as a priority for our municipality, largely because the bill introduces shorter assessment timeframes for residential development, as we've heard, removes referrals, but it also allows for certain known risks such as flooding and contamination to be set aside for streams 1 and 2 applications. And while I've heard from many residents that were affected with the Narrabeen flooding, and I've been to many of or a few of the commemorative events of that and heard devastating stories. To think that the bill would allow certain known risks like flooding to be set aside for stream 1 and 2 is extremely concerning for me. And so that's really one of the other things that I like about the proposed motion. So really, in summary, the development contributions, mitigating the concerns of our residents of the growth and not enough infrastructure to support the growth, and also responding to the climate and environmental risks that the bill proposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Theocrates. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Sarkic.
Thank you, Mayor. When I read this amendment, I was in two minds. I was 50-50 about it, and now that I've heard some comments from my colleagues here, I will support this amendment. But the thing is, there are winners and losers in this new reform, and I can quite categorically state the losers are going to be the community and every individual and anybody who lives in a covenant and all the other examples that Councillor Hamish said. So for me, I think we don't go far enough with this amendment. I think we're just clipping the ticket, jumping on the back of the train. I don't even think we're in economy, I think we're in the cargo hold, because we should be at the forefront of this, because we're going to get impacted severely. And, you know, it's, the state government needs to know that the community's not happy, Victoria is not happy about this, because everyone's going to be affected, every single individual, no matter what. And, you know, there's no point slapping them on the wrist with a wet lettuce, because we're not even doing that, we're just probably just throwing it at them. And I really think we should send a really strong message on behalf of our community.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to officers for putting together this report for us quite quickly, with a lot of information that came out in October from the reforms, and to Councillor Phil Byrne and I believe Councillor Jones, who worked together on getting an amendment up that really picked out some key issues that were those high-level ones that Councillor Phil Byrne has spoken about and some others. I support this alternative motion, and I do. We need planning reform. I agree with that. I think it's you know, we need to grow. We've got a lack of affordable housing. We've got a lack of funding the infrastructure to go along with housing developments. There's a lot, and this is the first major reform in 30 years that needed to happen. What we need though is meaningful engagement from the state government with local government who implement the planning scheme and who know our communities best and who want growth and development to happen in sustainable, locally sensitive and appropriate ways. And so that's what I think this does. I don't think it does it would do us any service to be fighting with state government. You know, there's always talks about planning powers being taken off the local government sector, and that's not what we're saying we don't want. We want to be working as good partners with state government, so I think that's what this does, calls for them to engage in meaningful consultation with us, to allow some more time, because it's been a really rushed time frame. There's been a lot of changes proposed, there have been some gaps, concerning gaps that have been highlighted by colleagues, and some really necessary improvements, I think. So I hope that this will be taken seriously by our parliamentary colleagues and that we can engage in some meaningful consultation with them to get better outcomes for the community and improve planning scheme, which we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm also happy to support and also support my colleagues' comments as well. So thank you everyone for the comments around the table. I think part B of the motion picks up well the concerns raised by officers in the report. So thank you, Councillor Phil Byrne and Councillor Hamish Jones for working together on this motion. I'll just add, like others have, that there's a really missed opportunity here for the government to work in partnership with councils who will be the ones responsible for administering these changes. The changes will place a significant administrative burden on councils through reduced statutory timeframes for determining planning applications and increased complexity within the planning system, and will remove community input from the majority of development applications in Moonee Valley. So all we are asking for is consultation with the local government sector, planners and other experts, as well as the community, to help shape this major reform so that it is realistic, pragmatic and considers all impacts to avoid unintended consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be supporting this also. I think local government, state government and federal government is obviously we're down the lower end of it, but once you get to state and you're a minister or a premier, your pen is pretty mighty and you get to sign a few pieces of paper which can destroy people's lives. And we're all human beings. We all work hard for our homes. and the pressure that's going to be put on our infrastructure here in Moonee Valley will be massive. And it'd be great if we did have open space to build these facilities. What comes with that is obviously high ball stadiums, more tennis courts, more schools. It's just going to put extra pressure on us. And the letter that we're hoping that you can write up now will be a ripper and a doozy, and can obviously chuck a few, and I know you're reasonably intelligent with that stuff. I wouldn't like to write it, might be in crayon and wouldn't get too far, but we'd hopefully push some buttons and hopefully just get them to the table and just put the common sense factor out there that the people of Moonee Valley just want to be heard and lived in their shoes. It's the old saying that you walk a mile in someone's shoes and you understand what's going on, and I don't think the people in the ivory tower understand that, and I think that's the point we need to get across. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Samantha Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion being Councillor hasn't yet spoken?
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I waited very patiently, but I absolutely will speak on this. So the planning amendment that a decision is made Faster Bill 2025, which proposes significant changes to the Planning Environment Act 1987, has been labelled the biggest planning shake-up in decades. But what is truly bonkers, however, is that despite Victoria's 79 councils being the primary users of the Act and the primary decision makers on planning proposals, the first time council saw the 238-page bill was when it was released late last month. Now, how anyone can think that would lead to good planning outcomes for our future is beyond me and completely mind-boggling. As the MAB have said, it is the largest and most complicated expansion of the Planning and Environment Act since 1987, but it is the least scrutinised. Wild. I wasn't even alive in 1987, so acts don't get written that often, so best we get it right. Council's view is that the proposed massive far-reaching reforms to planning systems require input from local government planners, other experts, and of course the community. Most of us have sat around at consultation meetings, and have had so many better outcomes when we work hand in hand with the community. The idea that the community, in most part, will get robbed of that opportunity is absolutely not in the best interest. A public inquiry is needed to allow for meaningful consultation and refinement of the bill. I have many issues with the bill. I know that fellow councillors have touched on them, but obviously the safe living and working environment, Councillor Theocrates, that you touched on quite well, the covenant issues, the lack of infrastructure. Councillor Sypek, you mentioned that there will be winners and losers, but I'm really struggling to see who the actual winners will be in this absolute schmozzle. Councillor Adams, you spoke about missed opportunities, and I absolutely agree with that, because we need a new act, there's no doubt about that, and this could have been excellent. It could have been so good, and it's just a missed opportunity. Anyway, bring on the public inquiry, I really hope it happens. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Councillors, under Rule 31(1) of our governance rules, if there's been any opposition to a motion, a right of reply is given. And I think that during the debate there was some words spoken in opposition, so I will give a right of reply to Councillor Phil Byrne if you'd like to take that.
No, thank you, Mayor.
In which case I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item on our agenda is item 10, notices of motion. We have none listed on tonight's agenda, so we'll move to item 11, urgent business. Councillors, do we have any urgent business? We don't, so we'll move to item 12, confidential reports, but we don't have any confidential reports on our agenda tonight either. In which case, that brings us to the conclusion of business on tonight's agenda. The last council meeting of the year will be held on Tuesday, the 9th of December 2025. Prior to then, we had our carols on the 6th of December, on Saturday the 6th of December, and this weekend we also have our celebration of the International Day of People with Disability at Flemington German Hub from 12 o'clock till 4 p.m. this Saturday, 29th of November. So we'll hope to see you at one of those occasions, or you can see us again for our final meeting of the year on the 9th of December. We look forward to seeing you